Judge fines Karoline Leavitt for wearing a cross. Then she drops a bombshell law even CNN didn't see coming. The courtroom erupts. The courtroom was dead silent as Judge Margaret Vincent glared down from her bench, her silver hair pulled tight into a bun, her black robes making her look like a storm cloud about to explode. Karoline Leavitt stood at the defense table, her usual sharp blue suit replaced with a simple black dress. But one thing stood out. A small gold cross necklace rested against her collarbone, catching the light every time she moved. "Miss Leavitt," Judge Vincent's voice was like ice. "This court has a strict no religious symbols policy. Remove that cross immediately." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Reporters leaned forward, pens hovering. Leavitt didn't flinch. She just tilted her head, her fingers brushing the cross lightly. "Your Honor, with all due respect." "No," the judge cut her off, slamming her gavel. "This isn't a church. It's my courtroom. Take it off, or I'll hold you in contempt." Leavitt's opponent, liberal firebrand attorney Elena Rodriguez, smirked from the plaintiff's table. "Looks like even Trump's golden girl isn't above the rules," she muttered, just loud enough for the jury to hear. The judge's eyes narrowed. $500 fine. Pay it now, or it's jail." Leavitt didn't move. Then, slowly, she smiled. Not a nervous smile. A predator's smile. "Your Honor," she said, voice calm but sharp as a knife, "before you find me, you might want to check Supreme Court precedent. Lynch v. Donnelly, 1984. The court ruled that religious displays in public spaces are constitutional if they're part of a broader historical tradition." She paused, letting the words sink in. "And since this courthouse still has a Ten Commandments display in the lobby—" The judge froze. The gallery erupted. Rodriguez shot up. "Objection! That's overruled." Judge Vincent's face turned red. She knew Leavitt was right. Leavitt leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper the mics barely caught. "And, if you try to find me anyway, I'll file a First Amendment lawsuit so fast your gavel won't have time to drop." The judge's grip on her gavel tightened. The room held its breath. Then, the twist no one saw coming. A voice boomed from the back of the courtroom. "She's right." Every head whipped around. Standing in the doorway was Senator Ted Cruz, holding a leather-bound law book. "And if this court ignores precedent," he said, loud enough for every camera to hear, "I'll read it into the congressional record myself." The judge's jaw dropped. Leavitt didn't even look surprised. She just adjusted her cross, her eyes locked on Rodriguez. Round one went to Leavitt. But the war? That was just starting. The second the judge's gavel hit the desk, the courtroom exploded into chaos. Reporters lunged for their phones, live tweeting the showdown. Leavitt wins started climbing trends before Cruz even made it to the front of the room. Elena Rodriguez slammed her folder shut, her dark eyes burning. "This isn't over," she hissed at Leavitt. Leavitt just smiled. "It never is, with you." Cruz reached the defense table, tossing the law book down with a thud. "Page 217, he said, loud enough for the mics to catch. "Precedent's clear. You want to fight, Judge? You'll lose." Judge Vincent's knuckles whitened around her gavel. She knew she'd been outplayed, but judges hate looking weak. "Court adjourned for 1 hour, she barked, storming off the bench before anyone could react. The moment she disappeared, the room erupted again. Cameras swarmed Leavitt. "Karoline, did you plan this? Is Cruz working with you?" She didn't answer, just smoothed her dress and turned to Cruz. "Took you long enough?" He smirked. "Had to let you sweat a little." Rodriguez shoved through the crowd, her voice a razor. "This is a stunt? You called Cruz in to intimidate the judge." Leavitt finally faced her, eyebrow raised. Or maybe you forgot to read the law. She tapped the cross. This isn't about religion, Elena. It's about the rules, and you hate losing by the rules. Rodriguez's face flushed. She opened her mouth. Bang! The judge's door flew open. A bailiff rushed out, face pale. Judge wants both attorneys in chambers. Now! The crowd gasped. Leavitt and Rodriguez locked eyes. Something was coming. The judge's chambers smelled like old books and bitter coffee. Leavitt walked in first. Cruz right behind her like a shadow. Rodriguez followed, heels clicking like gunshots on the hardwood floor. Judge Vincent stood by the window, her back to them, staring out at the courthouse steps where protesters were already gathering. Without turning, she spoke. Miss Leavitt, you think you're clever. Leavitt stayed silent. The judge finally turned, and for the first time, she looked tired. Here's the problem, the judge said, tossing a file onto her desk. It slid open, revealing a photo of Leavitt from 3 weeks ago, shaking hands with a known conservative donor at a private fundraiser. You're not here for religious freedom. You're here to make a spectacle. Rodriguez smirked. Leavitt didn't flinch. Cruz stepped forward. Judge, with all due respect. Respect? The judge's voice cracked like a whip. You storm into my courtroom, turn a simple hearing into a circus, and now you want to talk about respect? She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. I could bury you both in motion until this case is dust. The room went still. Then Leavitt laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was cold, calculated, the sound of someone holding a winning hand. Your Honor, she said, pulling a folded paper from her blazer, before you threaten us, you might want to read this. The judge hesitated, then snatched it. Her eyes scanned the page, and her face drained of color. Rodriguez lunged forward. What is it? The judge didn't answer, just stared at Leavitt. Where did you get this? Leavitt's smile didn't reach her eyes. Does it matter? The judge's hands trembled as she gripped the document. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then, bang! Rodriguez slammed her palm on the desk. Your Honor, whatever this is, it doesn't change the fact that Leavitt is manipulating this court. Leavitt didn't blink. Or maybe you just don't like getting outplayed. Judge Vincent finally looked up, her voice hollow. This changes things. She turned to Rodriguez. Elena, leave us. Rodriguez's jaw dropped. What? But now? The door clicked shut behind Rodriguez, her furious footsteps echoing down the hall. The judge sank into her chair, the document crumpling in her grip. Cruz crossed his arms. Told you she'd fold. Leavitt ignored him, her eyes locked on the judge. You recognize the signature, don't you? The judge's throat worked. This memo, it's from Chief Justice Roberts, dated 2 days ago. She looked up, her voice barely audible. He agrees with you. Leavitt's smile was razor thin. And now you have a choice. Dismiss the fine and let this go, or I release this to the press. Imagine the headlines. Judge defies Supreme Court. The judge's chair creaked as she leaned back, suddenly looking at every one of her 68 years. You wouldn't? Leavitt tilted her head. Try me. Outside, the protesters' chants grew louder. Somewhere in the building, a phone rang. The judge closed her eyes. Fine. The penalty is withdrawn. Leavitt nodded once and turned to leave, but the judge's voice stopped her. One more thing. Judge Vincent's eyes glittered with something dangerous. This isn't over. She won't let it be. Leavitt didn't need to ask who she was. Somewhere in the courthouse, Rodriguez was already on the phone. The courthouse steps were a war zone. Protesters screamed into megaphones. Reporters shoved microphones at anyone in a suit. And at the center of it all stood Elena Rodriguez, her phone pressed to her ear, her free hand gesturing wildly. Leavitt watched from a second-floor window, her reflection ghostly against the glass. Behind her, Cruz flipped through the Roberts memo. "This changes everything," he muttered. "If the Chief Justice is signaling support for religious displays in courtrooms, then we just rewrote the rulebook," Leavitt finished. She didn't smile. A knock at the door. A young intern slipped in, face pale. "Ms. Leavitt, you need to see this." The TV in the corner flickered to life. CNN. Breaking news. Rodriguez stood at a hastily assembled podium, flanked by two familiar faces, Senator Elizabeth Warren and ACLU Legal Director David Cole. Blatant attempt to bully the judiciary, Rodriguez declared, her voice shaking with fury. "But we have proof this so-called memo is a fake." The screen split, showing a grainy security still of Leavitt entering the Supreme Court building, 3 hours before the memo was dated. Leavitt's stomach dropped. Warren leaned into the mic. "This isn't about religious freedom. It's about fraud." Cruz's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then went very still. "Karoline, Fox News just got leaked emails between you and Roberts's clerk." The room tilted. Rodriguez's voice rang out from the TV. "We're filing ethics charges first thing tomorrow." Leavitt's fingers dug into the windowsill. This wasn't just a loss. This was annihilation. Then, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. One text. "You need an exit. Meet me at Lincoln Park. 20 minutes. No signature. Just a single emoji." Lincoln Park at midnight was eerily quiet. Leafless trees clawed at the sky as Leavitt paced near the statue of Lincoln, her breath fogging in the cold air. Every shadow felt like a threat. A twig snapped. She spun around and froze. Justice Clarence Thomas stepped into the dim glow of a street lamp, his face unreadable. "You shouldn't have come alone," he rumbled. Leavitt's pulse spiked. "You texted me?" Thomas didn't answer. Instead, he pulled an envelope from his coat. "Rodriguez is lying. The emails are doctored." He thrust it at her. "These are the originals." Leavitt tore it open. The papers inside showed what looked like a heated exchange between Roberts' clerk and Rodriguez herself. Her hands shook. This proves she manufactured the scandal. But why show me? Thomas's smile didn't reach his eyes. Because Roberts won't. And Cruz can't. He leaned in, his whisper carrying the weight of decades on the bench. "They're coming for all of us." A car door slammed in the distance. Thomas melted back into the shadows just as headlights swept across the park. Leavitt barely had time to shove the envelope into her coat before 3 Capitol Police officers materialized in front of her. "Karoline Leavitt?" The lead officer's hand rested on his holster. "The Senate Judiciary Committee wants you. Now." The Capitol Police SUV tore through empty D.C. streets, sirens off but lights flashing. Leavitt clutched the envelope so tight the edges cut into her palm. "Committee wants to talk at 1 a.m.?" she demanded. The officer beside her stared straight ahead. Special session. They weren't heading to the Senate. The car swerved into a nondescript underground garage beneath the Library of Congress. Fluorescent lights flickered as they marched her down a narrow hallway lined with armed guards. At the end, a steel door hissed open, revealing a windowless room where Senator Lindsey Graham sat waiting, his face grim under the buzzing lights. "Sit down, Karoline." She didn't move. "Where's Cruz?" Graham's smile was thin. "Ted's busy explaining why he helped you fake a Supreme Court memo." Leavitt's blood ran cold. "It's not fake. Thomas just gave me—" "Thomas?" Graham's chair screeched as he stood. Clarence Thomas hasn't left his house in 3 days. The envelope in her hand suddenly felt like a live grenade. Graham slid a tablet across the table. Security footage showed a man in a Thomas mask slipping her the documents. "Rodriguez set you up. Again." Leavitt's phone buzzed. CNN alert. Breaking. Chief Justice Roberts orders emergency review of forged correspondence. Graham leaned in. "You've got one play left. Give me the whistleblower behind this, or you'll be disbarred by dawn." The door burst open. A breathless aide whispered in Graham's ear. His face was drained of color. "God, help us all." He turned the tablet toward her. Live footage. A mob of protesters breaking into the Supreme Court building. And leading them? Elena Rodriguez, waving a copy of the fake memo. Leavitt lunged for the tablet, her fingers leaving smudges on the screen as she zoomed in. The mob wasn't just protesters. Half wore FBI windbreakers. "Those aren't rioters," she breathed. "That's a raid." Graham's phone rang. He put it on speaker. A panicked voice. "They're tearing apart Roberts's chambers." A gunshot cracked through the tablet's speakers. The live feed was cut to black. Leavitt was already moving. "We need Air Force One. Now." Graham grabbed her arm. "You don't get it. The president's already signed an executive order. The court's being dissolved pending investigation." The words hung in the air like poison. Then the lights went out. Emergency bulbs flickered red. Alarms wailed. Somewhere, steel doors slammed shut. Graham's aide screamed, "They're locking us in!" Leavitt pulled out her phone. One bar of signal. She typed a text, not to Cruz, not to Thomas, to the only number she'd sworn never to use. The reply was instant. "Marine 1 en route. 90 seconds. Bring the envelope." Graham's eyes widened. "You're working with him?" A thunderous boom shook the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. Leavitt sprinted for the stairs, the envelope burning against her ribs. She didn't look back. The rooftop wind nearly knocked Leavitt off her feet as Marine 1's blades whipped the air into a frenzy. She squinted through the storm of debris and froze. Not Trump. Not Putin. The man reaching down to pull her into the helicopter wore a wrinkled suit and a grim smile she'd know anywhere. Former Attorney General Bill Barr. "You're late!" he shouted over the rotor noise. Leavitt clutched the envelope tighter. "You set this whole thing up." Barr strapped her in as the chopper lurched skyward. Below them, the Capitol burned with floodlights as armored vehicles surrounded the Supreme Court. "Wrong." He tossed her a tablet. The screen showed a classified Pentagon alert. "Operation Scales. Authorization revoked. Stand down all units." Barr's voice turned grave. "Someone hijacked the op. This was supposed to be a fake raid, just enough to scare Roberts into retiring. But that mob down there? Half are Chinese operatives. The other half are Antifa. Rodriguez got played." Leavitt's mind raced. "Then who's running?" the pilot suddenly screamed. A red light flashed on the dashboard. "Missile lock! Missile lock!" Barr lunged for the controls as a streak of fire erupted from the Lincoln Memorial. Leavitt had 1 second to make a choice. She ripped open the envelope and threw its contents out the open door. Hundreds of pages fluttered down toward the National Mall like a blizzard of evidence. The missile veered wildly, chasing the papers instead of the chopper. Barr stared at her. What the hell was in there? Leavitt watched the explosion light up the reflecting pool below. Every dirty secret Roberts ever buried. The explosion lit up the Washington Monument like a second sun. Below, people screamed and ran as classified documents rained down over the National Mall, grabbed by protesters, reporters, even tourists filming with their phones. Leavitt watched from the chopper as the entire country started reading the truth live on CNN. Barr's radio crackled. A frantic voice. "Mr. President is invoking the 25th Amendment. They're arresting Rodriguez at the Capitol." Leavitt didn't react. She was too busy watching the real-time chaos unfold on Barr's tablet. TikTok videos of protesters reading Robert's secret memos about rigging election cases. Fox News breaking news. FBI director just resigned mid-broadcast. A single page blowing onto the White House lawn. Where a Marine guard scooped it up and saluted the camera, Barr turned to her, eyes wide. "You knew this would happen." Leavitt finally smiled. "I counted on it." The helicopter banked hard toward Andrews Air Force Base. Below them, the streets seethed like a kicked anthill. Then, her phone buzzed. One text from an unlisted number. "The game was rigged from the start, but you played well. See you in Moscow." Barr grabbed the phone. "What the?" The screen went black. A single word flashed in red letters before it died. "Checkmate." Leavitt leaned back as the chopper vanished into the clouds. Somewhere behind them, America burned, and the cross still hung around her neck.